Good evening, everybody. This is Dr. Mulder and part two with Mobius. And before we get started, Mobius, and I neglected to mention this, but I wanted to thank everybody that has been on the Stuff Telephone Society, the Facebook group that was the brainchild of Joshua P. Warren. And he said, "Hey, man, let's put this thing together." I said, "Great idea. Let's do it." We got you in there, being playing administrator and making sure that it's a safe environment for for all concerned. And I have to tell you, Mobius, great job. And also the people that have been on STS. I mean, just fantastic. I had the last few days I've really been busy. I just haven't had a chance to kind of go in there like I should and just see, look through and see what was going on. But from what I understand, it's just been one hell of a resource for all the people that have these telephones. Is that correct, sir?
Yeah, and I like it because it allows the users to directly communicate, to share experiences, and we plant a seed. And what is important to us is to see how that seed grows. And for people's consciousness experiments, how they're manifesting, how it's working for them, what they are experiencing.
Hmm.
And there isn't a right or a wrong. And
Hmm.
technically, you may come with a way of using this that completely blows us out of the water. And that's what we live for is that data, seeing this so that we can mine it and understand it. So
Yeah.
if you're not a member of the group and you're having experiences or you have ideas, send us a message. We want it. We love information. Give it to us.
Yeah. I had one guy that wrote back and he said that he pointed a laser to the wall and he didn't see anything. And I went ahead and sent him the link uh, for I think it was Dan Go Thoughts was the name of
Mhm.
the website. And I went ahead and sent him a link to that to kind of give him a better idea of the protocol for that experiment, minus the DMT. I'm not going to get into that. That's not my mojo. That's not my thing. Uh, you know, uh, but uh, but the actual protocol of physically setting up the experiment. So at least he knows what to look for. He knows what he needs to have set up in order to at least get into the game, so to speak.
Would suggest the one thing that works for me that I can see it is using a quartz crystal. Not, I have a pretty large one, but even a small one,
Mhm.
um, and use it as a kind of like what a bar scanner does. It makes basically a plus symbol, but you only need one section of that along the wall, and you look down it sideways. If you simply shine the laser on the wall, you're not going to see anything. You
Mhm.
have to diffuse it, and it has to create something about basically it's almost like doing the double split. Something about it seems to make it make a decision and change its behavior, and it causes a quantum phenomena that causes this to render. And now I'm saying you can see it without DMT through a quartz crystal, and maybe others can't. I can. I've never done a mass testing, and so this kind of is the mass testing. Try
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
and see. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Maybe I try to make a diagram of this on Claude so that somewhere you can post a picture for the protocol that I'm using, and we
Sure.
can see others are having the results. So we have infinite tools now. We can do amazing science at this point in investigations that only 10 years ago you could have only dreamed of doing.
Yeah, and I had several people asking, well, we discussed using a laser, creating a laser telephone. And I'm just going to tell you, honestly, what I'm concerned about is, and it's not this wonderful audience here, but everybody knows that there's that person out there that's going to take that laser and point it in their eyes, point it in their face, or point it toward their friends, or goof around, or point it up toward a flying aircraft, and or whatever. I don't. That's what we're trying to do is design something that is a radionic device where we can keep this laser out of the hands of the ne'er do wells, so to speak, and or the
Yeah,
foolish.
no matter what we do in describing the protocols and the safety and everything else, somebody will come along and shine it in their eyes, burn, mess up their eyesight, have a permanent black spots on their eyes is what happens. And it's just simply horrible, or worse, have blindness in one of their eyes. And in no way are we telling you to shine a laser in your eye. That's stupid. Looking down the diffused beam on the wall is a completely different thing than shining a laser within your eyes. That is dangerous and stupid. But I agree with you. No matter how idiot proof you try to make something, an idiot will come along that, bypasses and proves that you cannot out idiot an idiot. And so that's always an issue.
Yeah. Well, simply all we're trying to do is use a laser as a carrier wave. And again, the way I envision this thing, it's not going to be a portable unit. It's actually going to be a unit that you plug or work in conjunction with other equipment that sits on your desk or on your tabletop or on your shelf. But that's where I envision this thing going. And also, before I introduce a product like this, I want to make sure that all safety measures the best that are humanly possible, put in as many safety measures as we can to prevent any kind of bodily harm. Because I know how things are. I know there are
Yep.
people. It's just the way it is. It's not a perfect world. Never will be. But we both know how things are. It's like some kid, some little toddler taking a fork and sticking it in an electrical receptacle. I mean, it's
Have
just
700 sunshine simples that I've made with my own hands, and they're shipped all over the 48 states. And I consider that to be one of the greatest achievements, not in the fact that they were made or shipped or sold, but in the fact that not one of those has gone supercritical and burned somebody's house down.
mhm.
Those with idiot proof design that I've ever made because of how much energy is being stored in the batteries and in the system. And I am proud of that accomplishment. So I'm not going to mess it up by like making something that burns somebody's eyes out with laser beams and stupidity. So on that, play.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. With that being said, now you have the receipts. You've done the research. Mobius, my dear friend, please
Yeah.
relay to this wonderful audience what you have found out.
Okay, pretty much everybody knows about the Princeton Pure Lab experiments with the double split. And basically, what they found out is that when a human looks, well, not just a human, when the light is observed after it passes through a split, if a human looks at it, it just becomes dots. It is not a wave, it's dots. The second you stop looking, it becomes an interference pattern. And so the actual light going to it is both waves and particles. Its behavior depends whether or not it's observed. And that is called superposition. But again, that goes back to the whole idea. It fits perfectly with a video game universe that only renders when it's needed to be rendered to be observed. Otherwise, it is simply, in a non-existent state. But here's some experiments you probably haven't heard of. Dean Radin did a double split laser consciousness experiment. And this is the same experiment, but is being done directly and indirectly with people who are professional meditators. Usually they're Buddhist people who do like 4, 5, 6 hours of meditation a day, and their job was to focus toward the double split experiment as compared to away from it. And they would do these experiments. They used 137 people across 6 experimental transformations with 250 test sessions. And within these sessions, they consistently found the meditators changed the interference patterns, and they could make them up to 2.5 times larger than just a standard non-meditating person interfering with the same experiment who produced more consistent light interference patterns. So the trained attention upon the experiment amplified the effects. And that's kind of consistent with all the work with a quantum computer to take any observation or interference or human intention out of it and put it into an environment that's basically frozen so that it's not moving, it's at absolute zero, and it has no focused intent on it. Now, we mentioned something also in the last show. We mentioned the egg experiment. And the egg experiment is the Princeton experiment where you have random number generators.
Mhm.
And every single one of them should produce a random number, somewhere between 1 and 100, like once a minute. But when someone, a set of group of people focus on these devices, they consistently behave in a nonlinear manner and they're not random. It also, every time there's a major event like 9/11 or something the whole world experiences with a strong emotional intent, these random number generators become non random and they can actually begin to anticipate huge events because of the strange behavior. Reality stops behaving as it should. Randomness disappears. Now, that may sound extremely wonky, but you can also find this again. There were a group of scientists, and when they got a hold of the most advanced electron scanning microscopes, they decided that they wanted to see the release of uranium. They wanted to see the particle when it discharge of radioactivity. So they set everything up, and two of the guys started watching the experiment. And what happened? Nothing. There's no radiation released in the experiment when observed. And at first they thought it was a malfunction. The equipment was like, somehow or another, something way off. No, nothing happens when it's watched. You would not age. Your sandwich would never mold. All behavior that you associate with reality ceases to exist when you are observed at that level. So again, it's almost like a simulation. You're living in a video game universe. And when you look at it, you look at that one pixel, it can't behave as a program. It just sits there and does nothing. That's another example of the simulation universe. Um, there's just so many experiments that where consciousness is placed in any factor. Wheeler's choice, the delay choice experiment, this is another one where after the particles go through the split, the entire experiment does not know if the person is observing or not. So the particle is already gone, it's already gone through the experiment, it's already been detected. It doesn't know whether a person or an observer at that choice chose to look at it. Its behavior changes consistently after it's already completed. So the results are almost like retrocausality. It's the same thing. They decided to be, extreme and use starlight that was 1 billion years old. The same effect. Its behavior changed after it was put through a split. Unknown, in the experiment until everything was done, whether it was observed or not, consistently, the observer could change the nature of light that was 1 billion years old. So these are some of the experiments. Human consciousness over and over again changes the outcome. It is not subject to distance, it's not subject to time, and everything behaves as if it does not exist around you until you look at it. And its behavior then becomes a solid object. So basically, I'm telling you, your living room table, unless you have a cat downstairs or something, is not there. You have the mentality of an object, but your room only renders into consciousness into the physical realm when you are there to observe it. At the moment, it is in a state of perpetual like non-existence until you are there, and your memory, your influences, and your perception are what create that room.
Yeah, that's amazing. So basically, in a nutshell, you walk down the hallway and you're about to open a door. On the other side of that door, that room does not exist. It is not there. It does not exist until you open that door and look inside.
Yes. And it is as crazy as that sounds. That is the Nobel Prize for 2022, and all of the quantum science backs it up. Every experiment, the universe does not behave as we would expect, and the whole reality model is not even close to what we expect.
Hmm.
It only behaves according to standard physics when observed, but not too close. If you get too close, everything breaks down, and at that point, you get the quantum Zeno effect where everything stops behaving. Period.
Hmm. Hmm. Oh yeah, I mean it's just it's incredible where this thing's going. It kind of makes me wonder. I know if memory serves, was it Stephen Hawking that predicted that there would be black holes, or he just came up with the math to justify the theory of a black hole?
We had not seen one yet. We did not have the technology to see it yet. So after he predicted, and I think he finalized the math and everything, we finally were able to see one and document it.
Yeah, and that kind of goes to that story. I mean, would the black hole ever existed unless somebody came up with the idea that it would exist?
Oh, that's a can of worms. The Dogon tribe, this
Yeah.
remote tribe that simply had no contact with any humanity, with inside of their records, they have the Sirius star system. They know all the details, the planets, everything. And they've known this, potentially for like hundreds and hundreds, if not 1,000 years. And we did not have the ability to verify this with the telescope until almost, I think it was like 1996 or something, that we found out was a dual star system and all the planets and everything. They had talked about interacting with aliens in this remote planet and all this knowledge that was given to them. And lo and behold, their star system model that they have, it's almost like a worshipped from their interaction with these advanced beings that help them, is exactly accurate.
Hmm.
So, I can't tell you whether it came first, the chicken or the egg, but I can tell you, as you believe, so is done unto you, and you do affect your environment.
Oh yeah. I think even Einstein says something along the line, I'm paraphrasing. The universe could be a good place or it could be a bad place. It's up to you.
Yeah, and that's pretty accurate. Um, the science tends to, back up the fact solidly that consciousness is the most strong influence in the universe. That your thinking, your focus, what you watch, it changes reality and even creates reality. After you watch that 2022 video, if you have any questions left, the difference between magic and reality, I myself am unable to distinguish them after the video. It's that good.
Hmm. Oh yeah. I mean, and now you understand what I've been going through for literally years. And again, I think the catalyst for all this was the uh, Mandela effect. That's really where it started making me think about the true nature of this reality. And I mean, I knew I was living in an illusion. I mean, I've heard it a million times from other people, but I mean, hell, now we got the docs here. Now we got people have actually uh, have uh, have proven, quote unquote, have proven that what I thought for years, uh, I wasn't delusional. I was on the trail of something that was actually real. And I gotta say, I mean, I really did. Even Josh warned me. He said, Brad, if you dwell on this too much, you're gonna go crazy. And I don't know if I did or not. I don't think I did. I think I was reasonably rational about it. All I was trying to do is seek verification from other people to see, do you remember the same thing I remember, or am I just a whack job? Because if I'm a whack job, then there's millions of people out there that remember the same identical damn thing I remember. And you and I have a mutual friend who's been to some of these places and remembers it the way we did, the way we do. And he's been there, and he verified that we were not crazy.
He has the same memory. He, for example, has been to Panama. He's been to the canal. He is a pilot. He went, he thought it was fun. He had a compass. He knows how long he was down there. He knows how far he drove. And now you're looking at something that in no way matches his experience when he was down there. And we have a memory of this high school video where they were like building it and exactly how it looked, the dynamite going off, the Great American Project black and white video.
Hmm.
Um, it was old when they were showing it to us. And I remember this distinctly. And so you had me look at what the Panama Canal is now. And it just simply isn't the same thing as the memory I have.
Hmm.
Um, I'm kind of going to do a Joshua on that, and I just decided not to make myself, go crazy, and I accept that the tag on my underwear, does not have a cornucopia, but I'm positive that it did. That even the teacher told me what it was, the hornet planning, and I drew it. It was just a random crap assignment from a sub teacher, but you
Hmm.
don't forget something like that. I wish I could find it, and I may still have it.
Hmm.
Um, so this whole thing about reality, I can accept that someone else's timeline may be different than me. And since I can remember a cornucopia and they can't,
Hmm.
I don't either one of us is wrong. I think somehow or another we have like experienced a different timeline and somehow or another ended up in a common timeline. And I expect that when all of the science is done, that this is going to be validated.
Oh yeah. And also, I've noticed here in the Lord's Prayer inside of the King James Bible, it will go back and forth. It'll go back and forth. Mobius. I mean, this is for debts and debtors. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And then they'll change to forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. It will switch between those two, go back and forth. And I always remembered it as trespasses. I never remembered this debt and debtors thing. I didn't know where the hell that came from.
Here's the thing. Okay, there was once an issue like this. Nori on the air could not figure out whether the tattoo midget from Fantasy Island was alive or dead. And he started getting calls that were both ways. And these people were equally sure. And they were telling him about watching, and I think it was like afternoon edition, there was a thing about his life and it showed him, as a drug abuse person, abusive to his girlfriend in this video, as
I
I
remember
remember.
that. Yeah.
And yeah, it that he tried to shoot his girlfriend through the sliding glass door and committed suicide in the backyard. And he was just one mean SOB.
Right.
Now, every time you look, his life is different. I would have to look now. Sometimes you look and he was an extreme humanitarian. He donated all of this money to kids' charities and kids' hospitals. He would go to them, and he had at least 1,000 families, and he had almost gone broke trying to protect them. And
Hmm.
he was probably one of the biggest, humanitarians that exceeded his wealth to try to
Hmm.
help everyone. And he was just a wonderful guy. And
Right.
you have variations of this, but they change. I mean, it's absolute. And every time you look, and sometimes he was alive still, and he was, he was suffering. He was in very bad health when he would be alive. And so I've seen about 6 to 8 versions of his life when I would go and look, and
Right.
each one would be different. And I know people who remember this video and they've seen it or they saw it online. It does not exist anymore. So,
Yeah, I remember seeing a picture of that guy with he had a holster on with two the old Western six shooters, right? And
Mhm.
those and he's a very, very short man. I think he's one of the guys in the elevator. No, sorry, I had to say it. All right, but anyway, yeah, he had he's packing these six shooters, and they were almost touching the floor. It was just such an unusual. The guns were almost as big as him.
Well, I just know I've seen 6 to 8 versions of his life that I've actually taken the time and I've read them, and I've gone back maybe a year later and looked, and I've seen something completely different. I don't think I would have admitted this until now. But now, with how wonky the science is getting, I fully expect a scientific explanation to explain this
Yeah,
because,
yeah,
you're always like calling me up and going, "What do you remember?" And I tell you, and usually we sync.
yeah.
And you're like, you need to go look at this. And I go and look and I'm like, oh, not another one.
Oh yeah, I
And
remember. Yeah, I know you're like a Star Wars geek. I said, hey, check out R2D2. See what you think, man. What can you see anything unusual about that android?
C3PO you're
Oh,
talking about. And I'm
C3PO.
actually
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
actually a Star Trek fan, but I built the I had a high resolution photo when I had it in a kit, and I had the model, and it was held together from all the arms and legs by rubber bands so that you could shape it. And
Right.
I painted it so it was accurate at the time. I can't say I'm a big Star Wars fan, and I would say that
Not now.
I would say anything since, like probably about 2000 and something, since Disney got a hold of it. And I'm not a fan of what
Yeah.
Bad Butt and Secret Hideout have done to Star Trek. So anything before those things, I am a fan of the
Right.
old stuff.
Yeah,
Yes.
the old school stuff. Yeah, exactly. And and the thing I remember distinctly that that robot was gold from head to toe. Now, if you look at it, what does it have?
Has a silver leg, and I'm telling you, I had the photo. Yeah, yeah, it was I definitely had nothing but gold, and so it has been changed, and it looks like it was put together by scrap, and that certainly was not the situation in the robot that I built, or the coloring that it was, or the photo I had. So again, that is my timeline. Yours may differ. Your mileage may differ on your model for your
Yeah,
driving habits.
yeah,
I
yeah. Yeah, I know we've already gone through, the multiverse. Uh, this is my going theory as to why it can exist, and it kind of goes back. Well, if we're living in a freaking virtual reality or a simulation, it doesn't make any difference. I mean, at the end of the day, and it kind of you wonder why now? Why are we able to piece all of this together now and realize what the heck is going on? Because, and I'm not trying to sound religious, but right, we're looking into the mind of God right now.
we're looking into something that we're questioning the nature of reality and creation. So our knowledge base, our sciences, everything, we have reached that summit that we're asking questions and we're looking at things. That is where we are at.
Hmm. Oh yeah, this is deep. Like I said, I told you, off the air. I said this rabbit hole has no bottom.
Has no bottom.
Yeah, and I mean it goes on and on and on. And I realize it's the old common you know the saying, the more I know, the more I know, the more I realize that the less I know, or something along that line. The more I know, the less I know. And that's the way I feel. I mean, the more I learn about this, I have even more questions, because if this is possible, then what else is going on here? And I gotta say, it keeps going back to uh, the source code stuff that we're looking at here. It goes back to everything else. I mean, why does radionics work? And I think I nailed that one. At least I think I'm damn close. If I'm not 100% correct, I know I'm at least partially correct. And another thing too, this light, which is based upon these tepophones. I think you and I were discussing this. Even now, it, in the beginning there was light. If that's part of your belief system, and also you've told me they've even done experiments where they're able to create solid mass. So they're able to create stuff out of light. Is that correct?
Yes, and this is recent. In an experiment, for the first time, they were able to reverse light and change its form from uh, light to solid matter. And so, perfect conversion. It's never been done until something like about 6 months ago. And so I was reading about that, and it's always that theoretically it should be. And I mean, obviously, you can start a campfire and you make light. I guess not efficiently, but you make light by
Mm-hmm.
burning wood. You
Mm-hmm.
can see. Now, this is a process where you take the light and convert it back into a solid. It has now been done.
That well, so if it began with light, then light is the foundation for all matter. That now that seems like a real possibility. It really does. It seems like, okay, now we got that off the table. What next? And
Even what you're looking at when you say that, the creation as a model in a simulation, everything, distance, time, objects, everything become completely different. They only render and they only exist in the illusion of what you're experiencing. They're actually not genuine. And so what you by changing them is just simply like the cheat codes you put into the game so that you open up, like a new level or you get more powers. All of these things. We were created in the likeness and image. And if this is the universe we live in the creation that we have been placed in, then I am positive that we have the powers to change reality, to change the cheat codes, to advance, to do things that we cannot even imagine. And I would say in 1,000 years, what we take for granted is going to make us look like cavemen now because we are learning exponentially faster and faster.
Yeah. And what's that law about? Was every 2 or 3 years, computer technology doubles?
I think
Uh,
it's down to about 11 months now. And you're going to look very soon. I'm going to tell you something, and how to invest in stocks you might hear in this. You're going to have a box on your TV, and you're going to be able to render within we'll be able to watch it while it's rendering like Hogan's Heroes or Star Trek or Star Wars or anything that you can think of, something maybe that's never been created, and watch exactly the show that you want to watch live happening as you're watching it, that nobody else has ever seen, your own personal version of your perfect shows. So that narrow casting is going to become a thing, and it's coming so fast. And it's going to begin to blur the lines between reality and non-reality.
mhm.
Um, you were already to the point that you should not trust anything that you see on TV or the news. And I would say what 99% of any UFO video on Facebook is fake. If it's not done conventionally or, like whatever it's done, used to be with cheap computer programs. Now I don't think that you could distinguish some of the things being made. I've seen like Batman episodes that never existed, Star Trek clips, and the voice, the video, everything is perfect. But
Mhm.
what is soon going to happen, not only is that element going to be important, but just like we went from black and white to color, it's going to go for 3D. And you're going to be within the environment and experience it as a person within that show, as if you were a living entity there.
So, but
3D law is
yes,
it happening. It's coming fast. And I would say you will start to see what I just predicted well within 10 years. And it may be fully within 10 years you see it.
yeah. I mean,
And
you're talking Star Trek holodeck.
yes, but I'm thinking just now how we see like Star Trek, and it seems like, especially TOS, as much as I love it, is obsolete. I mean,
Mhm.
if you walked around with a communicator, you would be, I mean, it would look like the worst cell phone ever. What can you do with that? You push a couple of buttons and talk to one person? What? No, it's going to be so advanced that it's going to make the TNG, the version of it, it's going to be an experience that just cannot be imagined. It's just going to completely change things.
Yeah.
Um, People who own IPs, I think the most they can hope for is to lease out and own the actors, the content, and the look. And what I would say on this, and we're doing a prediction, this is the magic of where we're going. This is what happened to music. All
Mm.
music suddenly was being downloaded on Napster. Everybody could have any song they wanted for free. Well, they spent hundreds of millions suing everybody to try to make music, the old way of doing things. You went out and you bought it on an album or whatever. Well, you know
Right.
what? It had to be given away. So now ad rev on YouTube, if you play music, it goes back to the industry. You're looking at the same thing. When you can create the content the same way, you can create every bit of it and you can experience it. The best you can hope for is to somehow license the the virtual reality content, the IP for it. And this is where we're going. We are fast headed into a future that you can't even begin to imagine of what the technology is going to open. We haven't
Oh,
even discussed things like alien technology, if it's genuine,
oh
or these
yeah. we need to save that for part three. Yeah, we're about ready to wind down on this part two, and I'm going to have both of these videos up within a few hours of each other, and I will have all of the links and everything that we discussed about that video. It will be in the description. And with that being said, Mobius, fantastic job, and I look forward to talking to you for on a part three, and I will be giving you a call as soon as I close the show out. All right.
I'll talk to you later, my friend. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.